On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, after their second consecutive win on Sunday for the Sixers over the Hornets, there was a debate between Keith and I and how to view games during the regular season when we all look towards the playoffs. We'll discuss it now. And how do you view these games? What's important right here, Locked On 76ers?
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. What's poppin', D?
Not much, man. Tuesday, getting ready for some more Sixers basketball tonight. That's pretty much it. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well.
Good. Hope everybody out there is doing pretty well. Want to make sure we welcome you all in and thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside Keith Pompey from theinquirer.com, Sixers beat writer here. And again, we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first every day. Remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including right here at YouTube on Locked On 76ers. Well, Keith, we need to talk about how to view these basketball games when you are the 14-12 76ers, but a team that has had championship aspirations for basically the last 3 to 4 seasons. 5 playoff visits, 4 second-round exits, the one in the bubble. That one, of course, was a first-round exit, no Ben Simmons. And that particular season, that was in 2020. 1920, or I think it was started 2020 going into there. And Keith, it was just, one of those deals in that particular season. But every other year, they have had these championship aspirations. So we need to talk about, how do you watch these games? After you and I had a pretty good conversation about it on Monday, how do you view an 82-game season, especially when you have certain games that are mixed in, where you kind of say, that was supposed to happen. Also, we'll look at the Sacramento Kings, a pretty good test for the Sixers tonight in South Philadelphia, and then finally give our keys to the game on how the Sixers extend their winning streak to 3 along this homestand. Keith, yesterday you and I discussed how it was just the Charlotte Hornets. They were supposed to beat that basketball team. And on its face, we both agree there. Embiid had a tremendous outing, 53 points, 12 rebounds, his second 50-point game of the season, just less than about a month ago, when he did the same to the Utah Jazz on a Sunday in South Philadelphia. But it also got us going about how to watch them, what they mean when we watch them, and how to evaluate when it's a good win versus a whatever win. And a few weeks ago, they beat the Atlanta Hawks after they took care, I want to say, one of the lesser teams like the Orlando Magic or Charlotte, Detroit, somewhere along those lines. And they came back and they beat the Atlanta Hawks. And you said that was a good win. And, the guys were still out. That was a good team win that they had. They showed you something. And now we're here and they lose to some really good opponents. We know the bad loss against Houston last Monday. It was terrible a week ago. That was terrible. You can't lose to the Houston Rockets. And then you come back and you beat the Charlotte Hornets and blow them out like you're supposed to do. You beat the Los Angeles Lakers on Friday a few days ago, going into overtime where that didn't need to be. But how do you view these? Because maybe we differ. And I know I've had these conversations with Sixer fans over the years, especially when they are a championship contender. I, like you and many, believe that when it all comes down to it, it's all about the playoffs. But we do have to walk the streets of the 82-game schedule. How do you view them?
Yeah, you know what? It's different per team. You know what I mean? There are certain teams that you view it like, okay, let me just give you an example. So Andre Iguodala plays for the Golden State Warriors, right? Well, they're resting him right now because their goal is to win the championship. Like, he hasn't started yet, his coming back. They don't want him to come back too soon because the ultimate goal is just to get to the playoffs and win the championship. You know, the same thing can be said about the Milwaukee Bucks. They know that they're a good team. They had guys early on where they were just resting their guys and just doing whatever they can to make sure they get a number 2 seed, what have you. Like if they struggle, come back. And when you look at a team like the Sixers, so this is different for like the New York Knicks. Like a team like the Knicks, you want to go out there and you want to, make a great showing in the regular season because, you're battling for playoff contention. You want to be out there and you want to do that, right? But when you have a team like the 76ers who, was hyped up to be the third best team in the East, a team like the 76ers who were always getting bumped out in the second round of the playoffs since they went to the NBA Finals, if they make it, right? In 2001, it's like, to me, the people in Philadelphia are tired of getting overhyped over what they do in the regular season. Like no offense and not much respect to Joel Embiid. But he scored, he led the league in scoring last year. The stuff that he's doing now, he's shooting at a better percentage, but the stuff that he's doing now is similar to the way he dominated last year. James Harden, NBA, a 3-time scoring champion, a NBA MVP, all that stuff. All that stuff is great, but ultimately we've seen all this stuff before. And we've seen how they were number 1 in the East 2 years ago and got bumped in the second round. We've seen a lot of things. So, yes, it's great to say we can cherish what Joel Embiid did against the second worst team in the league, right? We can cherish that. But at the end of the day, they're going to be ultimately judged by if they get out the second round. If they don't get out the second round, Doc River could lose his job, right? Depending on who plays bad or not, you may wonder if Daryl Morey is going to lose his job. So at the end of the day, that's what they're going to be judged by. And yes, it's good to say that, okay, he scored a lot of points against this team, but then there are certain teams in the NBA, to me, you have some elite squads where the Sixers have to try to see if they are, and then you have some tanking squads, can't do right squads. And I look at the Charlotte Hornets as a team that can't do right. So you're supposed to smack them in the mouth when you have Joel Embiid and James Harden and Tobias Harris and Maxey didn't play, but you get my gist. So that's why when I look at what they do against those teams, it really doesn't have a lot of stock to me like it does others. Now, when they go up against a team like the Sacramento Kings, I look at that more as, okay, he's going up against Sabonis. Mason Plumlee couldn't guard him, but let me see if Sabonis can. Let me see if James Harden can guard one of these young guards, or are they going to strip him? What about Tobias? Can he keep up with this athleticism on the wings? PJ Tucker. So those are the things I look at. Against that Charlotte team, I saw two-way dudes on two guys on a two-way contract in the rotation in the first quarter. So I couldn't put a lot of stock in that one.
All right. Fair on all that. You're not wrong. Because again, when we all come back together, everybody who covers the Sixers or watches the Sixers, who root for the Sixers, they all want to see, just like we do, if they can advance back to second round like they're supposed to and get further by getting to the NBA Finals as well. The reason why, and I'll even go back to this when you talk about the playoffs, because I too, just like I might like some moves in the offseason, dislike moves in the offseason, trades during the regular season, all of that, I too look at the second round, and we all know that that is their kryptonite right now, that they can't get by that, which is why when we would talk about Ben Simmons, and specifically I'll point out the 42-point performance against Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz when Embiid was out, and he went off of that career high of 42. And I would always say it. And, I always say this dating back to, 2017 with him on the floor, year one or year two, 2018, where I would say aggressive Ben Simmons is the best Ben Simmons. And asking, hey, Ben, do this also in the postseason. Doesn't have to be for 42. It just means that the impact of your performance and your aggression, which could be passing the basketball, which could be just simply getting layups, little mid-range jumper floater, could be 20, 10, and 12, whatever it might be, plus your defense, that's all NBA first team defensive team worthy. You do that. So we're there together. But I don't minimize the process of an 82 game season, because that's what it is. It's an 82 game season. And we do look at these games as basketball fans to see what they do. They could rock the Milwaukee Bucks in one of these games. And you know what we're going to say, Keith? Good win, but can you do it in the playoffs? How is that enjoying basketball? That, to me, that's not enjoying basketball. If they do exactly what we talk about of smacking Milwaukee, are we going to point out that Chris Middleton wasn't in the lineup? Why? They smacked Milwaukee, because if they didn't, we'd be talking about not smacking Milwaukee without Chris Middleton in the lineup. It's a long season and we can't fast forward it. So I just choose to enjoy it. And when you say against Charlotte, beat the Charlotte Hornets, and you're absolutely right, that's what you're supposed to do. You beat them, you're supposed to beat them, but it wasn't just a beating, it was a 53-point performance from a superstar player in the NBA that hung that 53 on an NBA team. Now, it may be a lower rung NBA team, but it is an NBA team, and he put 53 points on them. It doesn't change anything for this game tonight against the Sacramento Kings, and I don't expect him to have 53 against the Sacramento Kings. I'm just saying that in a long season where games are played, the ball is tipped, there are a lot of things that happen in every game of the 30 teams on any NBA schedule every single night. You're going to get nights like this where we see a 53 from a superstar player. And we saw one. I don't minimize it because it's not easy to do. And again, they have 55 more games to play on the season. And I just happened to take a peek at the 53 and say, man, that was pretty darn good. Sure, he could have beat him with 33, but he was playing so good that he beat him with 53 on the night. And that's how I look at it. And that's why I don't minimize a performance like that, or the 33 from DeAnthony Melton against the Lakers on Friday night, because that could also, to again what you're saying, maybe do something for him when we see them in the playoffs. Not the Lakers, but when we see the Sixers in the playoffs, that in December, where he dropped 8 threes, he knows he can shoot. It doesn't mean that December is the one that's going to stand out, but that December game may have done something for him and clicked in his mind of what he could potentially do as an offensive threat, as an outside shooter going throughout the season that will eventually mean something in the postseason. So that's how I choose to look at it. And like we said on Monday, Keith, that's the beauty of the sport in all these sports, because of how we may view things differently. We all look at them as championship contenders. They should beat these bad teams. That's why we get ticked off when they lose to them, like Charlotte a few weeks back when they lost on that Wednesday night, the second night of a back-to-back. And, that Houston game, which was a bad loss, to have that winless 3-game road trip that they had last weekend, as a matter of fact. So that's how I look at things when it comes to, an 82-game season, when you beat up on a team like the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday and he drops 53. So that's just my take.
Yeah, the only thing I will say about that is, and that's a great take, and I understand you got to live in the moment, but it comes to a point like when you're at the Y, you know what I mean? And everywhere you go, they got the B court and the A court, right? And it comes a time when you the man on the B court and you just killing everybody on the B court, but then people want to step up and it start losing credibility, because not credibility, but it starts losing this luster because they waiting for you to go do that stuff to the guys on the A court. Mm-hmm. And so as much as the 76, I mean, let's face it, they finished one season with 16 consecutive wins and was just killing everybody.
18 season.
Yeah, 18. Then they had the one season where they were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, their starting lineup, right? Then they had another season where they were the number 1 seed in the East, like the number 1 team in the East. And all those seasons ended with second round heartbreaks, all of them. You know what I mean? And another thing is, like, the only constant in all these teams was Joel Embiid and Furkan Korkmaz and maybe Shake Milton, right? That's it. That's the only one. So we look at and we see all these guys. We went from with Brett Brown saying, I need to go out and get a big star or whatever. I'm going star hunting. We went to the first overall picks that they had in back to back. We go from Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick, Al Horford, all these dudes. Now is PJ Tucker, James Harden, Daniel House, DeAnthony Melton. So to me, it's like it's the same thing, just different names. And the thing is, it's like, okay, people get hyped up for it. It's great. This and that. Everybody's clapping. They going out there to buying these jerseys. But bruh, it has to have a different ending. So that's why it's kind of like, I hate to say it, it's kind of like, what they say, fool me once, that's on me. Fool me twice. No, fool me once, that's on you, whatever. Fool me twice is on me. And I feel like there are certain people within the fan base that are saying, all right, wake me up when y'all get to the playoffs. Not the first round, but the second round of the playoffs.
Oh no, there are people who actually say that and believe that wake me up when you get there. I just don't know how you watch a season and not pay attention to the whole thing as it plays out. And look at Boston last season where they started off terribly, and then January 1st hit and they became one of the best teams in the league and they got themselves to the NBA Finals. If you watch how that season went along, and if you decided to not watch it for the months of October, November, and December because of how disappointed you were in their overall performance, then you would have missed out on how things went. And you just came in and jumped in when they were playing well, but still said, they're not going to do anything anyway, so I'm not going to watch. And then all of a sudden they found their way in the NBA Finals. It's basketball. It's fun. It's a long season, and it's for great debate. And that's why when you mention the teams that they beat and where you evaluate them, engage them of how good they are, they have a pretty good one, surprising one coming into town tonight, Keith. The Sacramento Kings at 14-11 are in town and take on the Philadelphia 76ers. We're going to talk about them a little further for this game tonight. We'll get into the keys to the game in the final segment. But what type of problem or concerns do you may have for the Sixers and the Kings tonight? We'll dive into that next right here, Locked On 76ers.
Let's talk about Prize Picks, right? Talk about prizepicks.com. This is the thing I like about Prize Picks. And I know I keep saying the same examples, but look, I want y'all to get it. So when you have Prize Picks, you can say, hey, look, I'm taking Luka Doncic to score more than 26.5 points. LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds. Kevin Durant to have less than 6.5 assists. Sorry, KD. And Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 3-pointers made, right? So here's the thing about Prize Picks. This is how it works. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go score more or less than your Prize Picks projections, you can win 25 times your money on any entry, right? No competing against other people. It's just you and the projections available. Prize Picks offer projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA. You get the point. It's all the sports. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in all 30 states and Canada. So this is how you do it. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit matchup to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit matchup up to $100. So that's one of those things you need to do today, people. I'm telling you, definitely. Do it today.
Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Keith, the Sacramento Kings are in the middle of a 5-game road trip. Sixers being right there in the middle with 2 more to go after this one. First night of a back-to-back in Toronto to take on the Raptors on Wednesday night. On Sunday, they fell to the New York Knicks 112-99 against the Knicks team in New York. And this team, Keith, under Mike Brown, is a much better basketball team than we've seen in the past. What are you looking at as you look at this game, as you mentioned in the first segment, as a bit of a barometer for this basketball team, the Sixers against the Kings?
I really like this team. I mean, what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at this Sabonis matchup against Embiid. I mean, because Embiid has been phenomenal. He's really been, um, killing it. He's been playing very well. But I want to see how he goes up against Sabonis. 2 nights ago against the Knicks, I know Sacramento was destroyed, but Sabonis had 20 points on 7 for 10 shooting, right? Heading into that game, he was averaging 17 points, 11.3 rebounds, 6.5 assists, and 32.5 minutes played, right? Then I think that, he's small, but I like him. He's a guy, he doesn't average a lot of points, but I like that the intensity that he plays with. Kevin Huerter, I think, is a pretty good shooter. 6'7", he fits in well, right? Now, again, they had some guys who have been injured, right? And I think that like really hurts them a lot. But at the same time, the thing that really gets me is this matchup with Sabonis and Embiid. Just because Embiid has been on fire, he was just named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week on Monday, but I just really want to see this matchup.
It is a good matchup, and you mentioned those numbers 20 and 12. He's real cerebral with how he does things. Sabonis with his passing, very smart with how he uses his lower base. You watch him and how he defends, and again positions his feet the way that he should against some of these bigger guys and anticipates things. Now he's not a great defender, he's just a smart one that can sometimes make plays. But I do feel like Embiid has the edge over Sabonis, so it will be a good matchup. It was always fun watching them with Miles Turner and Sabonis in Indiana when they were together. The other matchup for me, and we won't know because on Sunday, De'Aaron Fox was questionable with the foot, so he did not play. Davion Mitchell started in his place at the point guard position. And I wanted to see DeAnthony Melton up against, as you just mentioned, De'Aaron Fox because of matchup-wise, and Kevin Huerter with James Harden. Now, Huerter is a great trade, by the way, by them over the offseason to acquire Kevin Huerter, add that shooting. When they moved on from Buddy Hield last season and Tyrese Halliburton, they brought this back, the shooting back in this form of Kevin Huerter, and he has just been really good for that basketball team. Being able to stretch the floor, playing with Sabonis again, and can pass the basketball with some of the best of them in the front court. Fox, the blazing speed that he has as a point guard and his vision, and you just needed a shooter like him and Keegan Murray, who was one of my favorite players in college basketball a season ago. And the Kings finally got one right in drafting Keegan Murray there in the top 5 of the NBA draft, adding his shooting at the forward position for this basketball team. So some really intriguing matchups tonight. And we'll see about Fox. We'll see if he plays tonight against Anthony Melton and James Harden having to run around with Kevin Huerter. How much will they switch up? Because those screens are set, and the next thing you know, one guy is cross-matched on another, and they have to defend them there. This is a good basketball team. They like to run, get out in transition. I watched one of the games where they beat the brakes off of the Brooklyn Nets a few weeks back on national TV, and I think they put up 150 points in that game against the Brooklyn Nets. And off the bench, Terrence Davis went nuts, leading them in scoring. So they have a variety of different weapons on their team, from Herder, Fox, Sabonis. Don't forget about a smart vet like Harrison Barnes, where he and Tobias Harris may match up, and see where PJ Tucker goes with the matchups also. This is just a good, fun basketball team that Mike Brown has changed things with that franchise and with that team. And they are really, really fun to watch. If people haven't watched them yet here on the East Coast, Sixer fans, I think you should be in for a treat. Now, obviously, you want your basketball team to stifle them and not allow them to look that good. But as far as a fun brand of basketball, they play that. And I think we're going to be in for a good one tonight. But to your point, a very good matchup for the Sixers, one that we can look at them and evaluate them off of a game like this one.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the thing is like, but see, this also goes back to why, again, and I don't want to be, the killjoy, but it also goes back to where sometimes I'm like, I'm just big on the playoffs, because as much if De'Aaron Fox doesn't play, they lose some luster. Now, again, you can make the same argument that, hey, the Sixers aren't playing people with Tyrese Maxey, right? So it's like, okay, well, he's out, so then let him be out. But at the same time, it's like you would love to see both of these teams go, head to head with all their best players. But how many times do we see that in the NBA regular season?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
But on the other side of that argument is, it's not my fault that they decided to sit that player, especially when it's not a self-inflicted thing. He hurt his ankle. He can't play.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm just saying it's kind of like
you lose like it for the game because he's not there. Yeah, but all I say is, dag, I wish he was playing. But oh well, go out there and do your thing, and do your thing against them. Davion Mitchell is capable. Davion Mitchell is capable of having a big game, and I've seen it. And we've seen it in the Sacramento Kings uniform with that team. So I would, even though he's not De'Aaron Fox, he brings something a little different, but he can get off in the game and still be effective and have that same type of impact. So this is gonna be a fun one tonight for sure. One of the ones that I've really been looking forward to, once we saw that Sacramento was a better team this time around. All right, man. With all of that, we need to get to the keys to the game. We'll do that in our final segment next, right here on Locked On 76ers.
Before we get to that final segment, I think we got to do y'all a favor and talk about Bet Online, right? You know what I mean? I love Bet Online. I'm not a betting man, but I love Bet Online. Why? Because Bet Online is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer to esports, we've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, the game starts tonight, 7 o'clock in South Philadelphia. Sixers hosting the Kings. 14-12 are the Sixers. 14-11 are the Kings. And a few keys to the game for this one tonight. I'll start with this one, Keith, since I always pass it to you first and ask you to get it going. But I'll start with it, and that is continue to carry that momentum from both Friday and Sunday for what you've done offensively. You've done pretty good on the offensive end and scoring the basketball. Keep it up. Some good assist numbers on their field goal makes, where they've been really good. I believe 31 assists for the Sixers on Sunday night off the top of my head in the game on Sunday against the Charlotte Hornets. No matter the opponent, they're sharing the basketball. Continue to make sure you share the basketball and execute. We know it's going to go through Joel Embiid, but there are others that are able to get off and get nuts, like we saw from DeAnthony Melton on Friday with his 33, the 19 points, 16 assists for James Harden on Sunday. There are other opportunities for others, and of course, Tobias Harris with his overall stretch that he's been on, where he's been playing pretty good basketball. So continue to execute. share the basketball, and I think it makes things easier for them. And then with that, when you do stuff like that, you're generally more engaged on the defensive end. So lock in, because the way the ball moves and how they have incorporated a lot of stuff from the Golden State era that Mike Brown was there, bringing some of those principles to the Sacramento Kings based on the games that I've seen since I stay up late and watch these games. They will get you. They can get you. They will sting you if you're not paying attention. If you turn your head the wrong way, if you take a possession off, they will make you pay for it. They have very active hands with their guards, from Fox to Davion Mitchell. They really dig in and get in there. Smart defensive player, as we talked about, Domantas Sabonis to a certain extent, and then Harrison Barnes also. And coming off the bench, they have some pretty good ones. They can hit the shots from outside. Kevin Huerter, Keegan Murray, as mentioned. Same thing goes for Terrence Davis when he comes off the bench in the starting lineup. Harrison Barnes will get you a few times. So they have to make sure that their defensive principles and continue to talk on the defensive end to make that happen. And then finally, for me, my third one is to not allow them to get out in transition. They like to run. They like to find those spaces and spread out around the perimeter for those three-point shots. So defend the three-point line, get back in transition. So a lot of that too is don't turn the ball over and not allow them to get the other way, but defend in transition to slow down their breaks and not allow them to get easy points. I think even though as good as their offense has been and has done some really nice things in the half-court set, don't forget about Malik Monk coming off the bench, which we know is instant offense, that if you can do that, I think the Sixers can have success against this Kings team tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with just about all of yours. I mean, matter of fact, I agree with all of them. You know, the one thing is, in addition to getting back on D, and like because of transition, stop the dribble drive penetration, because the last couple of games they've been giving up a lot of points in the paint, and they've been doing that for a while actually. So I mean, that's something that they need to stop. You did say that ball movement, that's something that they have to get. But in addition to that, guys like, Matisse Thybulle and guys who we don't think that, can who score a lot of points, just need to step up to keep it honest a little bit. I mean, a couple games ago, Matisse had a really solid offensive game. They need that type of performance from him as well, because they're going to get those open looks, right? They are. Also, I want to see James do the same stuff that he did against Sacramento, do the same stuff that he did against Charlotte, against Sacramento. It just seemed like where he was more focused on being a distributor and getting everybody else involved, as opposed to doing the isolation play, dribble, 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 right? I think if he can do that, then they're going to become unstoppable, because that, when he does that, it enables guy like DeAnthony Melton to get off. He's feeding Joel Embiid. People start collapsing on Joe, and then they start opening up other avenues for other guys. So I feel like, dribble penetration, making sure like the guys like Matisse can, play well, that they play well, and James just being this facilitator. Because, right now, I think not just for this game, but moving forward, you look at it and you say to yourself, Joel Embiid is going to get his 30 points a game. James has to do a lot of other things for us. He may not score as many points, but at the same time, you expect him to grab rebounds, and you expect him to get those double-digit assists.
And the one thing that you mentioned, Thybulle, especially when you had Daniel House out, so those minutes are up for grabs for you. It was one play, and he had, in terms of stats, 9 points against the Lakers last Friday. Pretty good for Matisse Thybulle, as we know. 3 dunks in the second quarter, almost in succession, right? Possessions where they found him for those easy finishes, alley-oops, and dunks at the rim. He had a 3-pointer later on also. There was a play, though, that I saw against the Kings where he had another look like that underneath, and he passed the basketball out where he was underneath the basket, and when he should have just gone up with it, maybe it would have been blocked, maybe it wouldn't have, but then it sailed into the defender's hands for a turnover. So he has to stay within himself, Keith, where he's confident enough to take a shot. We know that his best shot is in transition, and maybe even those open looks from 3 from the corner. But until they're not there, if he finds himself down there in the dunker's position, still go up there and give yourself an opportunity for the shot and not turn the ball over, and where it's a live ball turnover and leading to a bucket the other way for the other team. So I would like to see him continue that. All right. Well, look, man, we'll see what happens tonight. For everybody that is listening and watch, we'll be back tomorrow and recapping the game against the Kings and see if the Sixers can pick up win number 3 along this 7-game homestand. They've won the first 2. Let's see if they can keep this one going, because they will have a few days off before they host the Golden State Warriors, who also begin their road trip on Friday here in Philadelphia. That's going to be a huge one. Keith, as always, we got to thank the people for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Can you let the good folks know where they can find us?
Hey, look, wherever you can get your podcast, make sure you get this podcast, right? In addition to that, I think what you need to do is listen to the Divine Givens show tonight from 6 p.m. to midnight, right? Divine's going to be on there from 6 p.m. to midnight. And then also follow my man on Twitter at DivineG975. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers, and you can read my articles in Enquirer.com. So,
well, let's see, man. Let's see what happens. I think they get the W tonight. I think they earn a good one. It's going to be a hard-fought game and hopefully an entertaining one. But I do think they are good enough to beat this basketball team and maybe tell something. Maybe we learn something from this one tonight.
We'll see. I mean, they're rolling right now, so we'll see. We'll see.
Yep. Well, we'll see, man. We'll talk to you later. We'll be reading you in the Enquirer.com. Keith, have a good one. Enjoy the game tonight, man. We'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, brother. Same to you, my man.
Peace. Thanks, y'all.